Okay, welcome back to On the Ball, the podcast series from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. I'm Andrew Maraniss, and today I'm really excited to have two faculty members from the Blair School of Music here at Vanderbilt join us to discuss an interesting connection between sports and music, college football in music, video games in music. So we have Ryan Middagh, who is the director of jazz studies at Blair. Forgive me for looking down. I wanted to make sure I got that right. And Beth Wiese, who's an associate professor of tuba here at the Blair School, who were both involved in recording the music for the popular EA Sports college football game, which I believe the 2027 edition just hit the shelves. My daughter told me that she saw it at Target yesterday. My son loves to play those games, so your music is out there in the world in another way. I know you've had recordings of all sorts before, but this is a fun one for sure. So Ryan and Beth, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I saw an article that came out a couple weeks ago mentioning this project, alluded to the fact this was the third year that Blair faculty and students had been involved in recording the songs for the video game. Ryan, start with you. What is this history between Vandy and EA Sports? What do you know about how this came about and what had been done in the past prior to this year's recording session?
Yeah, so EA college football had taken a multi-year hiatus from the game, and they released their new version of the game in 2025. And I'm no video game historian, but from what I've been told, the music recording from the previous editions of the game were definitely in need of updating and improvement. Um, So this is how kind of we started to prep for College Football 25 when that big release. So and really where Vanderbilt comes into play here is our world-class faculty at the Blair School of Music, because yes, we're professors and we're teachers, but um, we're all really major practitioners of our instrument and the music, and we're very industry facing as a faculty, especially being in Nashville and Music City in a studio scene like this. So that's where it really comes to play is how active our faculty is on the studio scene and beyond. Um, yeah, our first year 20 for 20, EA 2025, we had to record all like 180 college fight songs. And that was quite the process because we tracked percussion, brass, and woodwinds separately. Um, and then we that went so well, we went back to record College Football 26, which we recorded in RCA, which is one of the best studios in the city. And we recorded that all together as a horn section with percussion separate. And then this last time for 2027, we recorded it in the Fisher Center at Belmont, everyone together all in one place. So um, I think we're at upwards of over 300 tracks total between the three video games recorded over a number of years.
Wow. So my daughter, who's heading into her sophomore year of high school, I just dropped her off this morning for a percussion camp at her high school. This is her first time ever playing the drums. So we're excited for a new activity for her. Beth, when did you start your musical journey? Was it something that you've been interested in since the time you were a little kid? Did you get started in high school? When did you start playing the tuba, or was it another instrument at first for
Yeah.
you?
So like all the way back is what you're asking, right?
Yes, all the way back.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I started my musical journey a while ago. In the previous century, in fact. And my backstory is that like I've always loved music. I'm one of three. I have two brothers, and my older brother was into music, so like I was into music. Um, but the story about how I started playing the tuba is I was a violinist before this, and I loved the violin and thought it was really cool. Um, but in Iowa, where I'm from, we played both string instruments and wind instruments, like band and orchestra class. And so when we chose band instruments, we chose in alphabetical order. like I really wanted to play the flute, like every fifth grade girl ever. And okay, I don't know if you can tell on my Zoom screen. My last name is Wiese, begins with
Yeah.
a W. And so the pickings were slim, and that's how I ended up with the tuba. And like the rest is history. It was just kind of a like, oh man, I have to play the tuba. This really stinks. But then it turned out to be something that I was like pretty good at. So of course I liked it. And so then the kind of the rest is history. And I did the marching band thing that your daughter's doing too. Like it was such an integral part of, I think for so many of like music students, it's not just about like playing music, but it's about the culture around it. You know, the band camps and like the friends that you make there, and there's this community of honestly band nerds that are such an integral part of your musical experience. And so I was really into that. And then the time came to come to college, and I mean, to me, there was just nothing else I could possibly think of to study. And then it began on this long journey of what am I going to do with a degree in tuba performance? And it just kind of spiraled from there into another degree and then another degree. And by the time I knew it, I had three college degrees in tuba performance, and was trying to figure out what in God's name am I going to do with these degrees. And then all of a sudden, this job teaching at a university in North Carolina appeared, and it just kind of fell into everything kind of just fell into place from there. So I got really lucky in so many senses that music has kind of unrolled and unraveled into this career that I ended up in.
That's a great story, all because of your W last
I know,
name. Good
all
thing
because
your
of my
last
last
name,
name.
if he had been an Aaron, AA, you would have picked the flute and none of this would have happened.
No, exactly, exactly. Like there's so much I think tied to like the instrument that you end up playing. I don't know, Ryan, if you feel the same way too, but like I feel so much there's so many, I don't know, personality traits and characteristics and like the people that gravitate to the different instruments. Like it so much shapes like who you are. And at that young age I had no idea, that would, I don't know, affect
Wow.
the trajectory of my life.
Love that story. And we'll get back to the EA recording in a minute. But Ryan, what's your backstory as a musician and getting into jazz?
Beth and I are both native Iowans, which is kind of fun. And I started on tuba,
Ah,
and yeah, and I was like, man, jazz band seems super fun, but there's no tuba in it. I guess I'll start baritone saxophone instead because they're roughly the same range, right? Um, so I started playing Barry sax, and I knew I wanted to be an educator my entire life. I wanted to teach something. And music happened to be the one that I gravitated towards. I had every intention of being a high school band director in the state of Iowa. That was my goal, and I was going to coach offensive line football in a small like 3A town, and like be the church choir director as well. I had it all planned out. Um, but I did my student teaching and it landed me here in Nashville. I did a student teaching down at the road at MLK as part of an out-of-state student teaching placement. And honestly, I started gigging right away, which was amazing. Like the first day that I moved to town, I get a phone call. It's like, hey, we heard you just moved to town. Do you play this, this, and this? I said yes, and it's like, oh, our read one for this musical got sick, and we need somebody to be here in an hour. And then I just started gigging, um, which that was a very, my viewpoint from being from Iowa was like, what does it mean to be a professional musician? Well, for a lot of us, that's being a music educator. But then I got kind of exposed to this like Nashville, Music City. You can like play so many different types of music, whether it's live, whether it's in a studio. Um, there's just a lot of different performance opportunities. And I would just, especially on a Friday, I would pack up my car and I would go teach like flute, clarinet, and saxophone lessons to like middle school kids. And by the time it was like 2 a.m., I'd be playing in a jam band at some venue, and it just really, opened me up to all the possibilities of what it meant to be a musician.
awesome. Well, both being from Iowa, I think about like Big Ten football, and my family is originally from Madison, Wisconsin, so I've seen that the Badgers marching band, and think about the tubas there, Beth. I mean, I think they're famous for their tuba section at UW.
Yeah.
What were the connections in your mind or in your life between music and football, or being a musician and sports as you grew up? Was something like would you go to games as a kid and you're watching the band instead of the football game, or you were in the high school marching band and those Friday nights were a big part of your experience growing up? Start with you, Beth.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because I very rarely get to talk to another like other Iowans, especially down here. So we're gonna turn this into the All Iowa All the Time podcast. Um, Ryan, University of Iowa, Iowa State, UNI. What was your allegiance?
Northern Iowa, Northern
You went to
Iowa.
Northern Iowa, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The teacher school. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know. So I didn't go to any in-state Iowa schools. We were more of an Iowa State family, I think. Like, I'm from Eastern Iowa, which was the University of Iowa territory. Um, but I think our allegiance was more Iowa
Okay.
State. I feel like everybody has their own allegiance over there of where you belong. I went to a fairly large high school by Iowa standards, and we had a pretty big marching band. So I was pretty into marching band. Again, because of the community that you get, like all of my friends were into marching band. And my friends that weren't into marching band, I remember like we would like we would march them over to the band director and be like, Katie wants to be in the marching band. What can she play? So he would give her like a baritone to hold, and so all of our friends ended up doing marching band together, um, and uh, and so it was just a thing. I will say in marching band as a tuba player, it's not the most comfortable thing ever. You play this instrument called the sousaphone, or at least I did, and you wear it, and um, yeah, it stinks. It's heavy, like it's uncomfortable. Um, you look like a weird, respectfully, you look a little strange. And yeah, it's not comfortable, and especially 20 some odd years later, now that I've been out of high school for a while, it's really uncomfortable. And that's what we recorded on these sousaphones. But yeah, I was really into marching band through high school, and then I went to college, and it was kind of my time in the marching band was over.
It
I went to
was over.
small schools, and I don't even know that we may have had a football team, but we'll
Right.
just leave it at that. So
How about you, Ryan? Were sports and music connected for you?
Oh yeah. I actually had the fun time of being on the football team and in the marching band at the same time.
Wow.
So on Friday nights, it would be halftime and I'd be marching my spot in my football gear, playing. So it was very uniquely, uh football experience and marching band experience where it's like, okay, you can do it all, but it's like, we need you to march your spot during halftime while everyone's taking a break. So I'd be out there in my full like padded gear doing my marching band stuff. But of course, on the weekends, when there's more like marching band competitions, I'd be in full marching band gear. I mean, sports is something I'm really passionate about. I love football. But I've been a huge Vanderbilt sports fan since I came here. I'm about to start my 13th year at Vanderbilt this fall. And I think my first couple years I had season tickets to the basketball games, was always going to the football games. To me, sports and music to me are two things that just bring people together, right? And I think that is something uniquely special. And especially there are moments in both that can kind of transcend the human experience, where there's just these magical moments that can't always be put into words. And I think both music and sports possess those kind of like magical moments. So to me, they've both been a pretty important part of my life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Um, Beth, how did you first hear about this opportunity to be a part of recording the music for a video game involving college football? And what was your initial reaction to that? Was it automatically something you wanted to do, or did it seem very far afield from what you do every day.
Yeah, so my first involvement is I'm about to begin my fourth year here at Vanderbilt, and right the summer before I started my first year at Vanderbilt, as I was moving to Nashville, I got a Facebook message from somebody that was like, "Hey, my name's such and such. Like, you want to do these recording sessions on sousaphone, like in a few months?" And I was like, "Huh." I mean, I haven't. It's not like I don't own a sousaphone. I haven't thought about this sousaphone for a good 20 years. But it was just kind of one of those like, sure, like why not? All interesting things come through Facebook messages, right? And so that was kind of my introduction to the Nashville recording scene, is like kind of showing up to these. And at that time, I mean, I think I was like, I had worked at Vanderbilt for like 2 weeks when like the first session started, and they were like, okay, go to this address and like we'll have a sousaphone for you. It's like, okay. And I think I did just a handful of sessions at that point because I was still like literally unpacking my life. And so that was kind of my introduction to the Nashville recording scene. And I think the cool thing about sort of the recording side of things here in Nashville is that it's just like very diverse, and there's all sorts of random recording sessions that you kind of do, and you just show up and you're like, I don't know what this is, but it sounds like fun. I did one yesterday that was like Halloween music, I think for Disneyland or something. It was, I have no idea. And you just kind of end up with these random gigs that are like, oh, this is a really cool, interesting chart. Let's go for it. And so there's a lot of that sort of diversity of what you're doing and what you're playing on a given day. So yeah, it was just one of those things where as a musician, I feel like I'm just kind of trained to say yes. And I did, and I'm glad I did. And it kind of spiraled into like, oh, that was kind of cool. Do you want to do that again next year? And then the year after that. And so now it's just sort of this perennial like, okay, let's do this again. And I was like, now I just really like the people that do it. It's just really fun.
Oh,
Like,
that's cool.
more than anything else.
And Ryan had alluded to this earlier, but it sounds like maybe this is an obvious point, but being in Nashville specifically provides more of these types of opportunities than you might get teaching at another comparable university somewhere that's not Music City. Is that true, Beth?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's just the location and who's here that has such an impact on those opportunities. You know, before I was doing this, I was teaching for 8 years in the Appalachian Mountains in Western North Carolina, which is awesome for very different reasons. But yeah, coming to Nashville, it's like you have the opportunity to sort of be surrounded by a lot of different musicians in different industries, which is cool in our field. You know, it's not just, oh, there's a symphony orchestra, or oh, there's, I don't know, just a recording industry. Or just university. You know, there's this convergence of like, we have a full-time professional orchestra here, and then we have, I don't know how many universities. I haven't stopped to count, but you have a lot of universities. And then there's this like whole nother, recording industry scene too. And so when you kind of like put together all three of those and all of the people that are involved in all of those industries, there's just this sort of like melting pot of cool opportunities and intersections of stuff.
And Ryan, you mentioned the first year. Is it true you guys had to record like every college's fight song for the game? Can you help someone who's not from this world understand like why it would be important to do that rather than like could you like just contact each school, have them send a recording of their song? What goes into the
Well, I would
process?
say
Is it better for the game?
part of that's quality control.
Yeah.
Um, because especially recording quality is massively important, especially when having a game with so many tracks like this. Recording technology and also the performance quality all come into play. That's why it was kind of important to do this from the ground up. Um, I will say that these projects have set an impossible standard for any college marching band to sound this good because you have 100 top call Nashville studio musicians playing this music. Um, And it's a lot of fun to put together, as Beth kind of alluded to. When we get called for studio sessions, we don't always know what it's going to be. Like literally, a contractor says, "Hey, Ryan, bring your saxophone. Go to this studio. We have a project." And I think that's really fun because there's this element of kind of discovery where it's like no one knows what's going to happen, no one knows how this is going to go, but we're all going to be in the room together and we're going to find out. Um, Obviously for EA, we knew what the project was because they asked us to book out 2 weeks of our lives to record all of this material. Um, but yeah, it's important that we did this from the ground up just to make sure that the highest quality was there in the performance and the recording technology. And I will say that Dave Ships, who's the producer on this project, um, does a really incredible job of having this balancing act of making sure that we're playing with this super high energy, making it feel like it's Saturday, college football, but then also super laid back and chill. It's like, all right, let's do 2 takes of this and we move on to the next thing. We don't get a lot of time to, you know, do multiple takes of stuff.
And it's more than just the fight songs. I know that my kids love the soundtracks to each game or to each edition of the game. I think there's the Miley Cyrus Flowers song that they both listen to all the time, the EA Sports band version of it. So each year, are you re-recording the fight songs, or you've done those, and then when you get together for your new recording sessions, it's just additional music that is available and is played during the football video game? How does that work, Ryan?
So we add on each time. So
Yeah.
the fight songs are the fight songs. They're done unless this last time there was one team that got added to there was one college that got added to Division 1, so we had to record their fight song. Um, and we just add on, and I think they're really being thoughtful about kind of how diverse the music is. So things like pop songs that get reimagined by a lot, especially like Big Ten, SEC schools. But
Mhm.
we also in 2026 did a lot of work on music that would be that the HBCUs play.
Mhm.
So making sure the stand music and the halftime music kind of reflect a number of institutions instead of just kind of one thought of what the music should sound like.
Okay. And Beth, what are these? Take us to a recording session. Like this year, you were over at Belmont. What does it look like? You walk in. You guys are so talented. You're just handed some music and you've never practiced it before, and all of a sudden you're recording it. Like, how does it unfold that day?
Yeah. So that's exactly right. Basically, you show up, and in my case, because I don't even have a sousaphone. I just show up with a tuba mouthpiece, and someone says, "There's a sousaphone over there. Go grab one." And then you just walk over, and they have your stand set up with whatever you're gonna play for the day, the book for the day. And this year, I think this was the first year we didn't record with like a click track, right?
Right.
The previous years, yeah, we all have. And so, but usually you have, a pair of headphones and you have a click track in one ear and the producer in your other ear or whatever. But this time you just had a whole marching band on the stage, and somebody in the booth will say, "We're going to start with this number," and they say, "We're going to start with these, 8 to 10 measures or whatever, and we're going to do this." And it's just kind of pieced together that way. So you just kind of have to show up ready to play whatever is thrown at you. And as a tuba player, it's not always the hardest stuff. I mean, if we're being honest, but it's just about playing with like the right energy and really the right rhythm and the right sense of style, and just sort of bringing it to life in that way. I think that's always the biggest challenge, and especially take after take after take. And standing and wearing a sousaphone isn't like the most comfortable thing in the world. And so that's really, I feel like, what our responsibility is to show up and play what's on the stand and just really bring it to life, each time you do a take.
So those of us who live in Nashville remember there was a massive ice storm in January. Sounds like this is when this recording took place this year. Was this over the course of a day over, Ryan, you mentioned what, 20 days? How long does it take to record the music for one of these games?
So this time it was originally supposed to be recorded during the ice storm. That's when it was
Okay.
originally scheduled. So we had to pivot pretty quickly. It got scheduled for the very end of rescheduled for the very end of February and the beginning of March. I think we were there for 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, but what was really cool about this situation is because of the rescheduling, it opened up a lot of opportunities for our students. So, the contractor, Alan, who's great, and you think of how big of an undertaking is. You're booking 100 musicians to be there at specific times, and then you have everything scheduled, and everything goes out the window because of an ice storm. Then you have to reschedule all 100 other musicians. That's massive. That's a massive undertaking. That very impressive. But because of the reschedule, not all the musicians could be there, right? So, at a certain point, Alan reaches out. It's like, hey, do you have any students who would like to be a part of the section? And I think for the saxophone section, I think I ended up having 5 students in the section for the studio session over the course of the 3 days. So it was a cool opportunity for them to be a part of, first of all, such a cool project. And many of them were music majors, but I had a saxophone student who's a pre-med major and he's off to medical school this next year. And how cool is it that he's like, I played on EA College 27. That's pretty cool. Um, so, they kind of got to see. So I do a lot of studio work, a lot of video games, a lot of projects, and I'm always talking to them about the importance of sight reading. And sometimes when your professor tells you something, you don't always really believe it until you're in the room and you have to do it in a professional setting. So it's cool for them to be a part of those sessions and, realize that yes, you have to sit down and you have to sight read. I think we did 50 or 60 tracks over the course of those few days. So that's a lot of music and it's a lot of sight reading. And the saxophone parts are a little harder than the tuba parts. Um, but they're still not that bad. But yeah, it was good for them to have that experience. And what's really fun with these projects is, there's no other project that I've been a part of that involves that many horn players in the same room, right? Usually the saxophone section is maxed out at about 5 for any other session. So in this case, we had 10, right? And there's like 20 trumpet players, which never happens. So it kind of turns into a little bit of a family reunion of like the studio scene. And then we get to see our former students in the room as well. Not, we had some current students, but we have a lot of alumni who have become a part of the studio scene, and it's cool to kind of see them in that situation and, catch up and be a part of it together.
Beth, did you have that experience as well of having students or former students that were part of the recording?
Yeah, I actually like I showed up at the first session and like right as like I think somebody was beginning the announcements, one of the other tuba players was like, "Hey, we need another sousaphone player. Can you like who do you got that you can text? Like, can you just text one of your students?" And this was like Sunday morning at 9 a.m. So I was like, okay, which of my students is going to be up at Sunday morning at 9 a.m. answering their text messages? Let's see. And so I texted a couple of them, and the first person to respond was like, okay, can you get down here like now? like, can you just show up to this address, bring a tuba mouthpiece, walk through security this way, and then there will be a sousaphone in a hallway. Just go get that and put it on and like come record. And that was her introduction to like the Nashville recording scene. Which and then it was like, okay, well, why don't you stay for the next like couple of days? And so she ended up staying and playing the whole rest of the rest of the sessions. And it's just kind of cool how those things just happen, just kind of fall into place because you answer your text messages at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning or whatever time that was. So
I know you hear about some people like that don't like to hear the sound of their own voice, or they might uh, authors they write a book, but they don't actually then go read the hard physical copy of their book. After you record this music, have either of you like played the video game or just downloaded the soundtrack to the music and you can that's me. What's been your experience like post recording with all of this? Ryan, start with you.
Yeah, like I'll usually go back and listen, when it hits like Spotify or whatever. Just out of curiosity, how everything turned out. When you're dealing with a band this big, it's hard to pick out your individual voice sometimes.
Mhm.
But I would say I do that with a number of projects that especially hit, the streaming services. What's kind of important to note in a broader context here is how big of a video game recording scene this has become. Because in addition to EA Sports, like this last year, two of the soundtracks that were nominated for a Grammy were recorded here for like the best video game soundtrack. So the Indiana Jones video game, which I was on, had was nominated for a Grammy, and also the new Star Wars video game was nominated for a Grammy. And then we do stuff like World of Warcraft. And what's fun with some of those smaller projects is there you can kind of be like, yeah, I mean, I have a solo feature on the last World of Warcraft, right? Which is fun for a Barry sax player. Um, but like with a group this big, you really can't do that. And the producers do a really great job of just when you go back and listen to it, just feels like this giant wall of sound, which is how, a marching band should sound.
Yeah. How about you, Beth? I mean, I also think about the fact that you guys are like accomplished musicians, accomplished academics. Some people might say like recording football songs for a video game is like that's not why I got into this. But like, is it really? Has this been a cool experience for you to see it out on the shelves and imagine all these millions of kids out there playing this game and listening to your music?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think the cool thing about the music industry is that it encompasses such a broad array of styles and genres and whatever. And I've listened to a little bit of it. I particularly enjoy there's a really good one on this year's release or whatever. Amy Wine there's an Amy Winehouse rehab which has a lot of tuba on it. So that was one where I could listen and be like, okay, I remember that vividly. So it's kind of cool to experience that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really neat to think about all of the different uh, ways in which, yeah, to hear myself in these different capacities, to kind of think about, when you think back to, that when we were first starting and talking in this podcast about how our musical journey started, in the fifth grade playing the tuba, to look to where it's gone now. It's just neat more than anything else.
Awesome. Well, one more question, Ryan, as we wrap this up. What would you say to prospective students who are out there? Imagine there's a lot of high school kids that would think this is awesome. Like I could potentially be a part of that. You mentioned the broader video game recording industry that's taking shape here in Nashville. For prospective Blair students, how would you describe these additional opportunities that are available by coming to school here in Nashville?
I mean, it's Music City. There's any type of opportunity if you go pursue it. So whether that's a studio session, live opportunities, we have students who are on like our professional orchestra sub list. We have students who are booking their own residencies at like major venues in town. Um, and really, in the grand scheme of things, Blair is a very small kind of, think of it as a well curated school because we're undergraduate only. We're a small school, so I think our faculty do a really good job of finding these opportunities for our students and encouraging them to really reach out and kind of get their professional competencies early instead of waiting for graduation and figuring out, okay, now what do I do to become a professional? No, we start working as a professional from day one when you walk in. And not everyone wants to be a studio musician. That's where I really spend a lot of my time, but really it's finding the path, and the set of professional tools that are going to help any student be successful.
Well, this has been a really fun interview, and what a great story for Vanderbilt and for Blair. Ryan, Beth, thank you so much for joining the show. Look forward to seeing you around campus, and I know my kids are going to go out and get that game, so I'll be listening to your work soon. Take care.